Hello, my name is Benji and welcome to Dice vs Cards. Today we go back to Marvel Champions, the card game, and the soon to be released Quicksilver expansion pack. We'll be looking at each of the signature cards in the box and assessing what sort of identity Quicksilver is going to be. So in the spirit of the speedster, So what do we have here then? Pietro Maximoff is his name and speeding is his game. His alter ego side has some great. A hand size of 6 is the best you're going to get to date in Marvel Champions. Some good in the form of his superpowered siblings ability. Could have been great if it was draw 2 cards then discard? Probably. As it is though, we'll be hoping more than expecting for an upgraded replacement in our hands. Partnering with Wanda gives it a slight bump, but the question is, are you able to hold out coming back to alter ego side until she's in play? That's certainly one way to look at it, although with the bad here in the form of a measly 9 hit points, it's looking like unless you're going protection or leadership, you might have a few trips back to this side of the card. I'm okay with this start to proceedings, but I'm not excited yet. His hero side doesn't tell us much about his power level, at least at first glance anyway. What it does say is building around cheap pump spells, turning him sideways and abusing his readying ability is going to at least make things interesting. I like the fact that response keywords are May triggers, because the vanilla version of this, when you only ready artificially once per turn, means that you can choose to enable the ability during the hero phase or the villain phase, which is definitely going to be relevant. Quicksilver isn't a save up for an all-in-one turn, but you're still going to have dud turns no matter how well tuned your deck is, so that flexibility is welcome. This also provides a built-in safeguard against being stunned or confused. The hand size of 5 is of course what you'd expect, and so at the very least I can see the potential here. But let's get on with the signature 15. Starting with the aforementioned Scarlet Witch. 3 resources for 3 health is about par for the course, and did I say I hate leaving things up to fate? Well then I should say that Scarlet Witch absolutely sucks because of it. But when you consider that on average you'll at the very least be swinging for 2 with whatever basic power you use, but more likely 3, all of a sudden her quality becomes readily apparent. Yes, you can whiff with her, but I'll take those odds, and the fact that she can attack and thwart in equal measure is just the cherry on top. Next up is always be running. Not always be closing, always be running. With 4 copies of this in the 15, I say now we're talking. Bring me some until end of phase or end of round pump spells and let's get swinging. This and his hero power is going to enable some mighty fine action. Cards like combat training and its justice equivalent are no brainers. But then you've got turn sideways cards like Yarn Beyond and anthem cards like Lead from the Front, Morale Boost and Moxie that mean that leadership is an out of the box ready aspect for Quicksilver. And the brand new Adrenaline Rush was tailor made for Quicksilver. 2 copies of Double Timer next, and this card highlights to me a hunch I've had about Quicksilver so far. That being the need for a slight change in playstyle for those piloting him. Think about it, you can just with his hero ability attack, thwart and defend all in one turn. So are we looking at a jack of all trades identity? Ultimately 2 damage for $2 is just shy of optimal. But 2 damage plus 2 thwart or any variation of those means I like this card. I don't love it, but I like it. Did you think we were having to deal with not enough until end of round buff cards? Think again, as 2 copies of Maximum Velocity give us excellent return on investment, especially comboing with Always Be Running. That's 3 attacks and the ability to defend. I'll take it. I'm not saying I was concerned up until this point, but I expected a card like this, and here it is and doesn't disappoint. Speed Cyclone is a one of, and an X cost to boot. There's honestly no real downside to this. $1 to stun the villain, Okay, that's not exceptional value, but this scales really well. I like $2 to stun 2 enemies, and so on and so forth. This could also be a very welcome multiplayer support card, and ties in nicely to what I'm sensing will be a well-rounded and flexible teammate, filling in wherever he's needed. One copy of Serval Industries is next, and it's a fine card. You of course don't want it coming out too early or too late, but in and of itself, is it worth coming back to Alter Ego Form 4? Probably not, but if the stars and tempo of the given scenario align, this will net you more sightings of maximum velocity. I must admit I don't love these types of shuffle back into your deck cards, but with some playtesting, we'll see how it pans out. Friction Resistance is up next, and it's just a variation on a theme here, but I'll be honest with you, the cost of 3 does not scare me from proclaiming this is a great card. And the earlier you play it, the better it scales with what is now the default cost of 1 or 2 for cards of this ilk, found alongside other heroes. Assuming you play this turn 1, on your next turn, which will say you're in hero form 4, you can cast a 2-drop and a 3-drop with just your hero ability, and this upgrade. Now this is the sort of activity most if not all identities can't really muster. I really do think this card unlocks so much potential. And as I go through these cards, I'm thinking we're going to need an extremely low resource curve to make this all work, with able 0 and 1 cost pump spells, but now all of a sudden that curve can be slightly higher. Of course it's only a one-off, and so you can't get too carried away, but this is one of, if not my favourite of this type of card, at least on paper, released to date. Finishing off on a high, we have the holy trinity of accelerated reflex, hyper perception and reinforced sinew. And quite honestly, these 3 cards have turned, to my mind at least, what I was thinking would be a B tier identity into the potential realms of greatness. I'm okay with the cost, it's exactly what you pay with these cards in their aspect variety. And again, it makes Quicksilver flexible and modular, if not out and out beast-like. The only downside I see at this point is getting Quicksilver set up. It's not quite Iron Man levels, but you can only rely on pump spells for so long, and these 3 really do sign off the signature 15 in style. That neatly wraps up the Siggies, but what about the Obligation and those pesky Nemesis? Well, if there's one thing every speedster has in common, it is the need for speed. AKA, let's take a dump on your tempo and spit you back out. This is not a fun card to draw, as neither option is anything but a kick in the chads. And props to the elegant wording on exhausting Pietro Maximov, so there's no native way to ready Quicksilver up. Moving to the Nemesis deck, the side scheme extortion of seismic proportions I can live with. In fact, it's probably worse as a boost card, despite it scaling towards more difficult in solo play. And Quixie's Nemesis Avalanche ain't fun to deal with either. Its stat line of 1 scheme, 2 attack and 4 health is manageable, at least comparatively so, but with the cherry on top of 2 extra threat and that sucks the more players around the table there are skill, adds up to a Nemesis I'd rather see less of than more. Vibration resistance on the other hand I'm more than okay with. Sure, I'll exhaust my hero, it ain't gonna stop me. Earthquake on the other hand does hit hard. Further tempo loss and some minor scheming is a great deal worse to deal with. Oh, and there's 2 of them, so thanks very much, but that about does it for the Nemesis deck. So there you have it, our review of all of Quicksilver's mandatory cards. I for one am excited to get this identity to the table. I think he's going to have a decent skill cap towards the top end. And finding the sweet spot in terms of resource curve will take some play testing, but there's all sorts of fun times to be had, turning your hero sideways, then back, then sideways again. However, that's it from me. I'll see you next time.